to the AFC Podcast. Just as a reminder, you can listen to us on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, on Castbox. You can see our beautiful faces on YouTube if you so choose. And also, if you watch on YouTube, you can see all the clips that our day players bring in for you. My name is Fragnito, and I'm joined by my co-host, Jim.
Hello. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for tuning in. We're going to have a fun podcast today. We have our actor, director, producer, day player, Toni Vitale, who has her own production company, and she's also the owner and founder of the Roosevelt Island Film Festival. We're going to talk to her about her career, and we're also going to talk about her film of choice, Walk the Line, from 2005. It's a biopic, and biopics are interesting because they're based on a true story, more often than not because it's a real person that they're basing the story on. They can't take certain leaps with the story. So, like, you can't stretch the truth too far, because then it's not true. Then it's not a biopic, and then it becomes a fictionalized version of that story. So, I don't know. I always question sometimes, like, did this really happen that way? Or was it, done a certain way? Did these actors know the people that they even played? Stuff like that. I always think about stuff like that. So I like seeing, like, I know Will Smith played Muhammad Ali, and I know they met at one point, and it was just kind of like a meet and greet, like, how you doing? Yeah, I'm going to play you in the movie. Cool, see you later. And then, there's a couple other instances like that. But yeah, do you have a biopic that stands out, one that you know of, or?
I've watched the movie Selena over and over again till forever. And I think it's there's a reason why a lot of biopics, I think, the actors get nominated over and over and over again for big awards for them, because instead of like just taking a character and putting your own spin on it, you have to impersonate a real life person. So, you have to take their mannerisms, you have to, and there are people who are such huge fans of them and people that are so well known that you are definitely going to be judged on how well you portray this person. It's not just an idea of like, I don't like the way Daniel Radcliffe played Harry Potter in the movies because that's not what he's like in my head. It's different. This is
Hogwarts. Really like.
I don't agree at all. I definitely didn't like the second Dumbledore, but that's a story for a whole other day.
You just put it in the gauntlet of fire.
It's not accurate to the book, and it drives me nuts.
So angry, just running across the room at full speed. Makes no sense.
The source material, that's why it's there. But anyway, then that's a prime example of like, they can make it into anything they want because it's just someone's interpretation rather than this is a real life person and they have to base their choices and the way that they walk, the way that they talk, the way that they do everything off of this real life human being.
Yeah, and we're going to talk about this a little bit later too, but I was looking into Walk the Line, and I was reading some of the stuff about how Joaquin Phoenix got the role, and Johnny Cash had to like sign off on it and be like, yeah, it's cool if you play me. And the same goes with June Carpenter, is that her name?
June Carter.
June Carter, yes. She had to also sign off on Reese Witherspoon because both of them too were singing. That was their voices, not Johnny Cash, not June Carter. But I thought that was really cool. One of the other things with Joaquin Phoenix too was because he was singing, he wasn't like a musician before that. Like, he had to train himself to really learn the guitar and learn how to sing. And his voice, there's no voice on earth like Johnny Cash. It's just this deep, powerful, gritty voice that no one else has. And Joaquin Phoenix was trying to do that, and his voice just wasn't that deep. So he was performing and singing, and they were going to make the entire movie with a different like voice. And they were like, all right, well, if my voice can't get to this level, the musicians have to change the keys of their instruments. And they learned all of Johnny Cash's songs on a different key. And then all of a sudden, right before production, Joaquin Phoenix was like, I got it. My voice dropped. I figured it out. And they all had to relearn all the music on the correct key because his voice got deeper suddenly. So it's like a weird thing, but it's credit to actors that go the extra mile and really try to live in the body of the people they're playing. The only other biopic I can think of off the bat is Wolf of Wall Street, because that movie's ridiculous. So I can't believe that movie is real, first of all.
I mean,
also Harry Potter. I can't believe that Harry Potter really happened.
It's real. It's all real. Yeah. There's actually a theory going around that J.K. Rowling is actually Rita Skeeter from the 4th books, and she got kicked out for breaking the laws of secrecy, and now she's just getting her revenge by writing fictional novels, but they're real.
I don't think we're allowed to talk about J.K. Rowling anymore. She's doing too much on Twitter. Yeah. Just delete. Her and Trump need to get off Twitter. Those two, for completely different reasons.
Yeah.
But it's crazy.
Just take the device away. Take the login away.
I think some people just shouldn't have Twitter. Just you're like, oh, you can be that rude in 140 characters? Cool.
I mean, that's a skill, but still.
Facebook, that's it. Just your own friends can deal with you. I don't want to deal with you. I've been off Twitter for almost a decade now, and my life's fine. I haven't been on Twitter.
Well, how about we actually bring Toni on and let's talk to her instead of running on about Twitter for a while, because we could go on about Twitter.
I've been on a 45-minute rant about Twitter, so that's probably a good decision. Let's bring on Toni. We're going to show one of her clips of all her projects, and then we'll get her on. We'll start asking her some questions.
Reminded me of that other time. Rough night, man. Oh.
Sit down, Marilyn.
All right, we're here with Toni Vitale. Toni, how are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
Great. So tell us a little bit about yourself, how you got into the industry, and what you do.
I'm an actor, director, producer, writer, and filmmaker. And I got into the industry years ago when I was in my teens. I would act around my house. And that's how I got into acting. And then I studied the Meisner technique, which really led me to doing some more stuff behind the scenes. And I wasn't getting enough work, so I decided to just create my own. And then that's how directing came in, and producing and writing as well.
Nice. So did directing, you kind of learned on the fly, like as you were doing projects or creating projects for yourself?
Yeah, I mean, as I was, doing my own projects, I was just kind of getting the visions of what I wanted to see. And then slowly, as I started doing that, I was learning more about the cinematography and the shots, the angles and stuff like that, and, the camera movements. And it's really so much entailed to filmmaking and directing that a lot of times we all just think it's just do this, but it's like so much more in that. But it's great process for myself to just keep educating myself through the process of my own work to get to other things.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of actors, they eventually have the goal to get behind the camera.
Yeah.
Not necessarily ever the other way around. Like, I have never been like, oh, I can't wait to become an actor one day. It's like once you're behind the camera, you're stuck there, I think.
I think it's, it's funny. I always have this thing that I laugh about, because for so many years, my parents were always like, you have to do something else other than acting. And I was always like, no. I mean, I think most actors are that way. They're like, no, I'm going to be an actor, and that's how it's going to pan out. But, now I really enjoy behind the scenes, because it enables me to kind of take a step back and to watch others work. And I think that's the greatest thing. So.
Yeah, I know so many actors at this point who, like you, were tired of waiting for someone to say, okay, I want you in my piece. And then, you just end up, instead of waiting, you take the bull by the horns and you say, I'm going to create my own thing. I know who I am as an artist, so I'm going to create something that showcases me. And then you want to keep doing that. You want to keep.
It was just this place where I was like, all right, I'm going to go back to training and I'm going to try to figure out what I'm doing wrong as an actor, why I'm not getting booked. And, of course, it turns out that they're always stereotyping you, and which is fine. But at the same time, we all as actors know that we have a different type of range. So I put myself through intense training for like 2 years straight. I mean, I poured my money out on training, which is the best thing that I ever did, because I really didn't find out exactly what I was doing that wasn't enabling me to book work. However, I did get to that same spot, which was like, hey, they're still stereotyping me. So in order for me to recreate a different path for myself, I'm going to just start creating my own work, my own roles, and maybe make and really open eyes to the range that I have. Then recreating my whole look, which is what I did, because I was like, maybe it's because of something I'm putting out that they're, looking at, that they're saying, well, this is what you look like, this is what we see. So I'm like, well, let's just cut my bangs and let's lose some weight and like let's just try to recreate something else. And
so you conformed.
Yeah, because and it's funny because when afterwards I look back and I say, wow, I see what they see. Because when you learn the casting process, I mean, I love casting. Like, I'm looking to get into casting and be a casting director and work more with that, because it really is amazing. It really, a lot of times, isn't about your work. It's really about just what they see, and then of course the work that goes into it. But I understood what they saw, because I saw that after I changed some things around, and like I was like, oh, now I get it. So
I feel like that's almost a step in the direction of becoming a method actor, because you're trying to really become the thing that is it's the role, and it's also what the filmmakers want for the role. So
right.
as opposed to, like, we're going to talk about Walk the Line in a little bit, but Joaquin Phoenix is notoriously a method actor, and he's crazy. But I think a slight step in that direction is if you're playing a certain character and then you cut your hair similar to how that character has their hair, or try to lose weight to look more like the character, or gain weight. Christian Bale is notorious for gaining ridiculous amounts of weight and then losing ridiculous amounts of weight. I think it was somewhere in the ballpark of like 80 pounds between The Dark Knight and the movie, I think, The Machinist, I believe, where he was like a skeleton, pretty much.
Right. Yeah,
but I think that's a step in the direction of becoming a better actor and a method actor a little bit.
Those are like two of my favorite actors too. They are so into what they do, and it's so beautiful to watch.
I completely agree. I could watch Joaquin Phoenix probably do just about anything because of how much he does give himself over to a role. 100% commitment. There's no questioning it at all.
Batman and the Joker.
That's true.
Yeah. It's like that was like an interesting movie.
So, Toni, how many projects have you created as part of your production company? How many projects have you kind of pushed out through that?
I mean, I created work before I did actual raising money for films. Like, I was doing some real clips and just playing around with writing. And I used to run a comedy show. It was called Laughing with TV. It was many years ago, a sketch comedy. I did a live show on in a theater, and then in between the live sketch comedy, I did some videos, some like Saturday Night Live type videos, and I screened those in between, like while we were changing for the next scene. It was over the top type comedy. It was, character comedy. And I think what started to be was people started to call me a comedian, and I really didn't like that very much, because I was like, I'm not really a comedian. I'm just somebody who likes comedy. And, I mean, I'm funny when I'm stoic and sarcastic, because that's like my dry humor. But when it comes to like pushing over the top type character-y stuff, like I didn't find myself to be really funny with all of that. And I just decided to say, you know what, this isn't really where my heart is at. So in order for me to really have everybody shift their focus and their attention on what it is that I really am, then I have to kind of stop doing this. So I deleted everything. I mean, I kept just the clips that I have for memories and stuff like that. And because also the quality of the clips weren't so great. And then, you know, from there, I just, like I said, I started writing some real stuff and real clips. And then the Hold On Loosely was the first film that I really produced that, you know, I was like, I raised money for it, hired a cinematographer, lighting, sound, and all that. Then I did Flowers, and then I did Adultish. So that's my comedy series. And my knowledge is gained so much from those projects and in between. And the problem is always the budget. It's like, you know, where do we get the budget to really do what we see? And so I learned my lesson from Adultish because I didn't really have too much of the budget to do that project. And it came out great, and it's really funny. I have such great talent on it, and I even thought myself, like the way I said, hey, this is really who I am to be funny. I'm not really a over-the-top character comedy. So, and then drama is like really, I'm interested really in both. And I think my love for all these projects prompted me to create a production company so that I can help others create their art. And because I don't always want to be in front of the camera, I do want to direct other projects and produce other projects. So I'm producing a project and directing a project coming up in October. So I finally got my first dibs on it, and I'm building my company as we speak. And then I also own the Roosevelt Island Film Festival, which is, I just started up with that as well. So all of it's just coming into play, which is really nice because I was trying to find these, like that plant that, you know, comes through the cracks. It's like there's these other routes to get to where you really want to go, and it may not be the route that you always had planned. So I said, you know, instead of letting this passion of mine go, I really am going to find these other little cracks to get to where I got to go. So that's kind of where I'm at now. I have other projects right now that I'm excited to put on. But with this going on, it's so difficult to really, you know, but I'm just building it. And then when they're ready to launch and we're ready to go, we're going to, you know.
Are you finding that it's more difficult to do anything or write or get creative during coronavirus and all the quarantine and everything like that? Like, I personally have been like stuck. I'm in an end of the road, not end of the road, but I'm just like stalemated. Like, coronavirus put me on pause a little bit.
Yeah.
And I'm enjoying the time. I'm doing this podcast. This is kind of one of the creative outlets for me. Writing. I haven't been writing any like films or stories or anything like that. But have you been trying to write things or put things together during?
Right prior to this whole thing, I was making this deal with myself, like that I really wanted to get more organized and more focused. And then I was really overwhelmed with just my schedule, and it was starting to get frustrating. So when this all happened, I decided to throw everything out in my apartment because I realized that was one of the things that was getting in my way. Was this disorganization was like kind of clouding my mind. And then I was just coasting, because as writers, I think that's really what's important. It's funny, I just mentioned that too, is like when you're a writer, you kind of coast because there's really nothing that sparks you. And when it does spark you is when you're ready to write down. And so with this quarantine that happening, I had a lot of funny stuff happen that I was like, you know what, I got to really continue this comedy series because like I really want to add these into it. It's like really, really funny. I don't want to make it too much because I think we all like put quarantine in there. But also other things started to spark this feature film that I want to write. You know, it's a 1970s piece about gambling and the mafia. And, you know, I have that going. I have Sloan and Alice, which is another short film. And all these projects are probably about 3/4 finished. So I'm kind of trying to balance my time right now between writing, creating, building my company, the film festival, and, you know, enjoying my summer because it is summer. So I think we should all not feel guilty for like enjoying the weather and like going to the beach and just kind of doing really nothing sometimes, you know?
I think that's what a lot of people are taking away from the quarantine, is to just kind of like turn their brain off and just chill. Just chill. That's it. A lot of people do that.
If you know what it did for me, I went inward with myself. I did a lot of inward work, and I had to, because I really felt like that's really the best way that we're ever going to be successful, or we're ever going to have a solid business, or, a company with because we have to work with ourselves. We are our selling tool, and like we all have weaknesses, we all have bad habits, and mastering those bad habits, and I would say taming them more, because we're always going to have bad habits. But when you're going into business for yourself and you're in this filmmaking business, we're always dealing with lots of people. And so I felt that this time would have been great for all of us to really go inward. But then, like, what I thought, I was really excited about it, and then all of a sudden the protesting started, and it just showed that everybody went berserk. And you can't control what everybody does, but yeah, I think that's a good time always to really go inward with yourself, to discover things about yourself, to better yourself for relationships, for business, for just overall life.
Well, tell us a little bit about the Roosevelt Island Film Festival.
Oh wait, I just lost you. There we are. Oh, hi. Okay. So the Roosevelt Island Film Festival, I've been to so many festivals that I've been to enough where I really admired everybody's work. I tried to get to as many as I could. I didn't have any projects in a lot of them, but I just supported artist friends, or just in general to just see what the festivals are about. And I just said, I want to start my own festival. So I was thinking about where to have it, what to call it. I knew nothing about it. So I went to this festival in the Hamptons, and there was this really nice man, Alberto was his name, and he suggested that I do it in Roosevelt Island, because he said that, nothing was out there, and that it had the tram, and, so I was like, oh, that's a good idea. So I went out there one day and I checked it out, and I couldn't find anything, where to have this festival. And a friend of mine, Daniel Giordano, who I've worked with in the past before, he is a director. And anyway, he lives there, and said, oh, I live out here. If you need any help, let me know. So he started to help me slowly with the festival. And then he said, I just want to be a founder. And I was like, sure, of course. Anybody, who's going to help me, like, it's great. And then we were just working so much together that he's like, you know what, I want to be equal partners. And I was like, you know what, fine, that's great too, because you are doing equal amount of work, and I feel like you live there, you're as passionate about it as I am, and I just, would like for everyone to know that it was me that originally started it, and then once it started, we worked together, and so now we're partners. And we have planned on doing it in August, which is a short time from the time that we started it. So with this all happening, we weren't able to have it, and we really want to have it in the summer months where we can really appreciate Roosevelt Island and do something on the tram, and like have everybody really go and enjoy the beauty of it. So we decided to just put it off till next June.
Yeah, I think that's a smart decision too. A lot of people are using the downtime as well to not only inwardly reflect, but also they're taking their projects and just making them better, because they have the time to sit down and just write it out better or edit it better. I know filmmakers behind the movie Black Widow and Marvel and Disney, I read a thing that they were like, I think we have a better cut of the film because we didn't have to have the pressure of getting it out for the May release date because coronavirus pushed it back. So it's all about seeing the positives in everything going on, because obviously we could see all the negatives, every minute of every day.
Yeah, and submissions too. I mean, we got some submissions, but because of everything happening, it kind of put a damper on our submissions. So now we have lots of time to get more submissions, to get sponsors, to promote it more. And I think it was a better thing too. It's giving everybody a break. I mean, it's frustrating because we all want to work. We all want to get back to work and stuff. But, I think sometimes we need to remember of this time may never happen again. Like this little pause.
Yeah, I think once we do get back to work, people are going to be like, shit, I need a break. Like, when's the next 6-month vacation that I can go on? And that's just not a thing. Everyone's going to be like waiting for their 4-week vacation that won't exist and going back to just having weekends. And I think that might change a little bit. I feel like people are going to be trying to take longer vacations or take longer breaks from things. I think people are going to try to start working from home more and just be more, as opposed to going out into the world where someone can cough on you and then you die. So I think it's just way safer to just do it like this and have everybody do Zoom chats and stuff. because this is cool.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I have a joke, like I say the social distancing, I'm like, I'm up to 800 feet. I'm like, you know what, this thing is like kind of nice, so let's just keep mine at 800 feet.
We all live pretty close to one another. Victoria lives like 3 blocks away from me, and I know that you live pretty close by in Astoria as well. But
Yeah.
you know, that's the Astoria Filmmakers Club. We're all pretty close by.
Mm-hmm.
Hold on, I'm gonna yell out the window. You tell me if you hear me. No.
Right?
Uh,
That would be
Tell us a little bit about why you chose the film Walk the Line as your movie choice for the podcast.
Well, Walk the Line, first of all, other than, you know, amazing acting. I mean, it's just so true and real. And it is a love story. However, that's not really why I love it so much. There was a time in my life when, I'm not sure if you saw any of the clips from my film Hold On Loosely, but there was a little bit of a, you know, I was a bartender and I got kind of caught up in the party life and drugs, and, you know, as some of us all do at some point in our lives. But it was just a really down time for me. And I really looked out for help for others to just get me to this place where I was like proud of myself and, you know, just not really, you know, in that lifestyle anymore. So I think that's why I love the movie so much, is because he really like knocked down her door pretty much. I mean, like, she was a tough soul, and I think a lot of us have this thing about ourselves that we're so afraid to love because we've been hurt before, or because it really is just difficult. But I think that he really did, and even though he was hurting his wife while he was doing it, you know, he really felt something for her, and she as did for him, because there was this connection that they just couldn't let go. And it was just like they really musically like matched each other. And, you know, he really wanted help. Like, he really wanted to get better. He didn't want to stay where he was. And I think when it comes to that, is like, you know, drugs and all that, it's really a difficult place to be in, because you're hurting so many people when you're doing it. But at the same time, you're not doing it to hurt these people. You're doing it because you've got no control over what you're doing. And I think that's really what the message to me was, is that their friendship, other than the love, because it's the love was there, it was just this friendship that they had. That there's this one line in the movie that, you know, her mother says, "You're already down there," and what she means is like, you're already involved in his life. You're already, you know. And so to me, I think it was like she had to put all of her fears and frustration away to help this person. And she stayed at his house. You know, they chased away all the drug dealers and got him to a place where he was ready to really be better. And, you know, he didn't really, I think it's just this tender moment that he had when he really accepted his problems. You know what I mean? And like, that's just so beautiful, because it's not easy for people to do that, you know? And I mean, I had people in my life that helped me, but I would say I did it more for myself, because I really had this vision of where I wanted to be in life. And the only way I'm ever going to get there is if you help yourself. You have to really make that choice. Nobody can really do it for you. And so she helped him get him there, but generally he made the choice to just change. So yeah, I think, and that's what it is ultimately. And then, you know, of course, the love part of it too is like, it's such a genuine, true love that they have for each other that is so rare in this world today, that it's nice to watch that on screen. And it's not so much a chick flick or like one of those like girly films. It's really a story about friendship and work and artists and love, you know.
It's really great when, you know, you can connect so deeply with a film like that, when you have like a film or you know, a piece of art or music or like a theater piece that just stays with you like that because of such a personal experience. So I love that that's one of the reasons that you wanted to share Walk the Line with us, because it really is a great film. You know, and I haven't seen it in years, so I appreciate the opportunity to rewatch it.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's been a long
Well,
time.
and, you know, other than their acting, it's just impeccable. I mean, they're just like, you know, and Joaquin, I just love him. He's just so great. And he really should have won an award for that film, I thought, you know.
Well,
So.
I love when I was reading up on the film how much he said that he was trying to give lists of other actors that he thought could play it better than he could before he accepted the role. And you know, watching it now, you can't imagine that anyone was better for playing Johnny Cash than Joaquin.
Yeah.
Like, I can't think. I want to know who was on his short list. Like, who did Joaquin honestly think was better for that role than himself? I can't imagine anyone in that role at this point.
Age Johnny.
Yeah.
They just do digital effects to make Johnny Cash look young again.
Right.
Time that maybe was possible. I think he passed away right after the film started shooting, weirdly enough.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, he did. It's sad that he never got to see the performances. He and June both didn't get to see the performances and their story kind of play out. But I think they did a really great job.
I think so too. Yeah. I mean, it's always been one of my all-time favorite movies that I could watch over and over again.
Well, Toni, thank you so much for jumping on the podcast with us, telling us a little bit about your career and your production company and the things you're trying to start up. I really look forward to, when all of this is over, being able to go out to Roosevelt Island and see the film festival and see what you do with it. That's super exciting. We're going to share all of your links and everything so that people can keep up to date with you and all the things that you're trying to do. But thank you so much. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Toni.
You're welcome. I'll see you guys soon.
Hey guys, so the goal of the Astoria Filmmakers Club is to help filmmakers in the area produce their own original work and make films that we can all enjoy. The best way to show support of this is to make a donation, big or small, to the club.
Your donations will go directly towards the club, this podcast, and any future productions that the AFC takes on.
Just scan the QR code below, and it will bring you directly to the club's official Venmo page. You can make any size donation you want, and we would really appreciate it. It will go directly towards us and towards members of the club, and they can make cool videos and content and films, and we just love your support. Please show your support and make a donation today. All right, that was Toni Vitale. Thank you very much, Toni, for coming on the podcast, talking to us about your career and everything you've got going on. Let's talk about her film choice, Walk the Line. So Walk the Line. Victoria, first impressions. What did you think?
Well, I had seen it forever ago. I think I saw it the year it came out. It was 2005.
I must have seen it in like 2007 or something.
It was a long time ago. I do remember enjoying it. Rewatching it, I found it to actually be kind of a hard rewatch. Not for any particular reason besides the fact it just felt very long to me. I felt like there was, and I think also my opinion of it had been tampered a little bit because I read an article completely separate from this podcast and everything about how Vivian Cash, his first wife, was portrayed extremely inaccurately in this film. And one of Johnny Cash's daughters from his first marriage flat out said, like, it's really unfair the way they portrayed my mother and the way that they portrayed her, in that she wasn't like supportive of his music career. And, you know, they portrayed her as this like mean, angry woman when, you know, she was super supportive of him. The whole reason that they got divorced was his drug habit and he was sleeping around. Makes sense. Pretty good reason to end a marriage.
I don't
But
think you have to make the wife out to be a villain to say that, you know?
yeah, right?
I
So
mean,
I
maybe
feel going into it.
but I don't know.
So I felt like going into it, I already had like this isn't quite how I remember the film. And I felt a little like, if that's that was so inaccurate. How are they portraying everything else?
Yeah.
But I do enjoy Reese Witherspoon. I enjoy Joaquin Phoenix. I think they had great chemistry. And I think that, it was a really interesting story to watch. All of those, classic names coming up, Jerry Lee Lewis, Elvis Presley, Johnny Cash, all of them coming up through it. But again, realizing how much rock and roll was kind of stolen from other cultures made it kind of difficult to watch, I guess, in this context. But all of that aside, the acting is amazing. The story of his kind of redemption through, through the drug abuse and June being there for him and their friendship that blossomed into something more. I think it's a solid example of a biopic. It had its true story in the middle of it. There were a couple things that they changed for dramatic effect. But overall, it's pretty solid.
Yeah, it definitely makes you question, like, was his relationship with his dad that bad? The dad might have watched that movie, had he been alive at the time when it came out. Probably not, because Johnny Cash passed away too, at like a very old age. So, but I would imagine that the dad might have watched it and gone, "The fuck? Not that much of a problem with my kid," Like, maybe he did. Maybe it was even worse than we know. He was like beating the kid or something. You never know. Story is told by those who wrote it, I suppose. But interestingly enough, this movie is directed by James Mangold, who also directed one of my favorite films ever, Logan. Weirdly enough, cool crossover between movies. Yeah, I liked the movie. I thought it was great. It was an interesting watch. Obviously, all the problematic things that happen throughout it. It's based in, is it the 50s and 60s? Mm-hmm. So, like, women's rights weren't really as advanced as they are now. So, I'm sure that, too, these characters were being portrayed not in such a sense. Like, in the 50s, you could be like, "Shut up, woman." And that's normal. But now today, you can't tell that story. People would immediately be like, "Fuck that guy."
Well, what else I found interesting was, June Carter was, a kind of country gospel voice, and her whole family, they were entertainers and they were the same. And it was interesting how they, portrayed her having to deal with, like, divorce at the time wasn't as prevalent and was very much frowned upon, and her still having to try and keep this career going in the midst of all of that. Her wondering whether or not she's, is she breaking her own values by developing this relationship with Johnny Cash. And I know I think that was interesting and very, very well done in the film.
Yeah, she certainly got, Reese Witherspoon definitely got awarded for her performance. She won the BAFTA Award, the Broadcast Film Critic Award, the Golden Globe. She got that for, I think it was a musical or comedy category. Some of these categories, too, sometimes there weren't enough musicals and there also wasn't enough comedies, so they lump them together. That Walk the Line was not a funny movie, so that makes no sense.
And it's not technically a musical. Like, just because it featured music, because it was about musicians, doesn't make it a musical. A musical is when characters are so overwhelmed with emotion that they break out into song and no one questions it. Everyone just goes with it. Whereas this is them performing songs because they are musicians. Like, but there's a whole other tangent we could go off on people submitting films for things in categories that they don't actually fit just because they want to make sure they get at least a nomination, if not the actual award.
if you can fucking believe this, do you know the movie Get Out?
Yeah.
That was listed as a comedy. And if you've seen Get Out, you should be like, what the fuck?
Well, didn't Jordan Peele actually, like, because he's not the one who submitted it like that. It was whoever had the distribution rights, right? Or
Yeah, I don't think it was submitted as a comedy. I think the Academy just said, we're going to put it in the comedy category. There's like 2 moments in that movie where you might chuckle. But Jordan Peele came out and he said, well, I forget exactly what he said, but like, no, that it's not. Oh, he said it's not a comedy, it's a horror movie for Black people.
yeah.
Like, oh shit, that's correct, 100%. So it was just like a wake-up call for a lot of people because they were like, how is this a comedy? It was just insane that you listed it as a comedy. But I do want to add to, on top of all those other awards that Reese Witherspoon got, because it seems like all the awards that came in for the film was either for the music itself or for her. She got all the awards, including the Oscar for Best Actress in the leading role. So that's pretty crazy that this is the movie where she got her Oscar. Is that her only Oscar? I don't know. Yeah? Okay. And the movie did really well, too. In the box office, it did really well. The budget was $28 million to put this whole movie together. In the box office, it wound up pulling in $187 million. That's a huge turnaround. They made their money hand over fist on this movie, which, good for Fox. So sorry that your whole studio got bought by Disney now. Disney is the world. Yeah, I mean, the film itself, I think the music was good, too. I wouldn't imagine Joaquin Phoenix being a great singer, especially with his recent performances of, like, Joker and Her. Those films don't make me think, oh, wow, this guy can sing.
No, but this might be a weird opinion. Johnny Cash, to me, isn't an amazing vocalist. He has a very unique sound, and I don't think there's anyone in the world that can replicate, really, no musician can really replicate that 100%. That is Johnny Cash's sound, but that doesn't make him an amazing vocalist. You know, like Bob Dylan, not an amazing vocalist, an incredible musician, and unique and great at what he does. And he was like Randy Newman, again, same thing. Great musician, wonderful composer. His voice isn't exactly like, you wouldn't listen to that and be like, that's the most beautiful voice I've ever heard in my life. But
come on, his voice is like velvet. No, it's like Velcro. It's like grinding. It's horrible. I hate his voice. But, you know.
But it fits perfectly in his songs, does it not? It's his sound. So, you know,
I love that James Mangold is the director on this film. And then when he made Logan, it was almost like a callback to the fact that he made this movie when he used the song Hurt by Johnny Cash in the trailer for Logan, which was really cool. And I think that song epitomizes the fact that he has this unique voice and no one else can really have that. But it's just, I agree with you. It's not like I wouldn't have him sing the national anthem, you know, the day after Whitney Houston goes or something like that. Yeah. I'd be feeling bad for pretty much anybody that sang. Can you imagine the day after Whitney Houston sang her classic performance of the national anthem? So the next person up had to be like, okay, here we go. You have to get like a group of Girl Scouts or something because you can't be like, oh wow, their shitty performance because they're like, you know. Right. But I think Reese Witherspoon and Joaquin Phoenix did a great job. They both learned instruments too. I forget what was Reese Witherspoon playing the whole time. It was some kind of weird.
Think of what that instrument is.
Or something. It was like a small harp, handheld harp of some sort.
I'm looking it up right now.
Yeah.
What instrument did Reese Witherspoon? I've seen that instrument before and I can't. It's called the auto harp. That's what it's called.
The auto harp.
Auto harp.
Interesting.
Yeah.
But it's pretty cool that they, dedicated all that time. They learned those instruments. They came out. They actually performed all the music. It gives more authenticity to the role, I think.
Yeah, I think that was a very interesting and strong choice for the filmmakers to let them sing the music themselves. I think most of the time they, the voices, if you're doing especially a musical biopic, the voices are so iconic that you don't want to mess with it. Like I know with Selena, I think there's only one point where Jennifer Lopez actually sang and it wasn't a recording of Selena. And I think that was like at like a concert scene where she, was trying to quiet the crowd down. So she was singing and then they put the track on. And again, with, Freddie Mercury's voice is so unique and so insanely talented. It's so hard to replicate that sound. So, I completely understand most of the time when they don't allow the actor to really sing for them. But I think it made it feel a lot more real to know that they were actually singing at that point, and you didn't sit there the whole time, going, oh, they're lip syncing really well. Because I do that. I did that a little bit watching like Selena. I'll watch that and I'll be like, oh,
yeah. Did Rami Malek, did he sing all the stuff for Bohemian Rhapsody? I don't think he would. I know there's a guy, I just Googled him, that's what I was typing, named Mark Martel, and he sounds just like Freddie Mercury to the point where that's what he's famous for, is sounding like Freddie Mercury. And he got brought onto a show at some point to perform for Celine Dion. Like it was like he walked out and Celine Dion was like, oh my God, because he was going to sing her a song by Freddie Mercury. So apparently he's that much like it. I wouldn't be surprised if they had him record the music for Bohemian Rhapsody.
So in Bohemian Rhapsody, I just looked it up while you were talking. What they did was they mixed Rami Malek's voice with that guy Mark. They mixed the voices together over it, so it was a more authentic, so that Rami Malek was actually singing, but it sounded more like Freddie Mercury. Whereas, like, if you look at Ray, Jamie Foxx, who is a classically trained pianist, was playing, but he was lip syncing to what is his name? Ray. What is his last name?
Charles.
Ray Charles. Wow, my brain. But he was lip syncing to Ray Charles in that.
I had to do a double take at one point because when at one point he goes upstairs and he's watching June perform for the first time, and he looks over to his right, and who's sitting there? Of course, Elvis Presley. And for half a second, I was like, "Oh shit, is that really Elvis?" And I was like, "Wait, you're stupid. That's not Elvis. You dumb idiot." And I had to tell myself. But for half a second, I was like, "Oh shit, he really looks like Elvis." I thought that was really great. And just a few other parts of the movie that were like really favorite parts. I think towards the beginning when he's had that fight with his wife at the very beginning, and he was singing the song in the basement, and she walked in on it, and she was like, "Oh, you hate me."
Mm.
I found that to be surprisingly like interesting, and for him it was just the music was flowing naturally, and that was just the expression of his true feelings, and she registered it as like, oh, he's through his art he's expressing that he hates me. And I thought that was interesting that that's how she perceived it, and for him it was like, no, I'm just writing a song, like I'm embellishing upon the situation to tell a song, to write a song about this sort of.
I mean, look at the song he wrote, about Folsom Prison. He literally talks about shooting a man in Reno. He didn't do that. Like,
Maybe he did. Maybe he shot a guy and he was like, "Please stop me. I am murdering everybody."
I think that's got to be hard as artists when you are writing things based on your own life. It's hard.
Not for 50 Cent. Not hard for him at all. Artists
Why
that
did
are
you
like,
go
this
there?
fucking happened, and it happened. Here we go. And then there's other artists that are rapping about it. Key and Peele actually did, to bring up Jordan Peele again. They did a funny sketch where there was a rapper artist who was brought into a detective agency. And the detectives were asking this rapper. They were like, "We have to talk to you about your new song." And the song was like, the beat comes in, and then all of a sudden you hear him rapping, and he's like, "I killed Todd Jeffords. I murdered him with a gun." And he's like rapping those lyrics. They're like, "Did you do it though? Because we found this gun and it has your fingerprints on it and you're confessing about it." And he's like, "Nah, man, that's just a song. I'm just writing a song. It's just fun." But then as they played the tape out more, it was like evidence at that point. Like, "Nah, man, it's just a song." So all these artists, they're talking a lot of shit. They're talking about having guns and stealing drugs and having all these crazy cars, and meanwhile they're like, normal dudes that can just write really well.
I mean, that is difficult though when you are writing about your real life stuff. You wonder how people, because I mean, even the Walk the Line was based off of 2 Johnny Cash autobiographies, which very well could have, for example, put his first wife, his ex-wife Vivian, into a very not nice light, But from Vivian's point of view, it wasn't that way. From their daughter's point of view, it wasn't that way. So I mean, even though it is through Johnny Cash's lens, it might not. There's his side, her side, and what really happened.
Yeah.
So
He
it's
her as the villain, but maybe he didn't, and he knew, it's me because I'm the drug addict cheater over here, and I don't know. I don't believe Johnny Cash ever saw the movie
he
because
passed away before it was finished.
he did approve of the cast, so they were making the production. I think he was like, "He's good," and then I think at the end of the movie it says that June passed away first, and then he passed away pretty soon after, like
4 months later.
So I'm pretty sure they passed away like right as they started production or something. So I'm sure that fueled the fire of this movie. Like, whenever somebody dies, it's almost like, let's talk about them more, But Heath Ledger, Dark Knight, that movie was amazing.
Yep.
Would it have had the same success if Heath Ledger hadn't died? I mean, nobody would really know, but I think it certainly brought more attention to the movie, if any. Yeah. I mean, I enjoyed the movie. I felt like the performances all around were really strong. I really felt for the relationship between the dad and Johnny Cash. JR, his name isn't even Johnny. I was surprised by that. I forgot about that little fact. Also, it's kind of funny that the Army was like, "No, you can't." Or what did he join? Did he join the Army or the Navy?
Air Force.
Air Force, okay. So he joins the Air Force, and they're like, "JR is not a name, son. You can't. You gotta pick a real name, a strong American name."
Johnny. There you go.
He said John, and then I think it was June was the first one that was like, "Oh, Johnny Cash tied to my dress or whatever," when he bumped her. But it just immediately was like, as soon as he met her, I was like, "Oh, he's gonna cheat on his wife." I knew where it was going, and I didn't really remember the story either, so it was just guessing. But I was like, "Oh, I know what's gonna happen." So if anything, it was rather predictable. I was surprised because you know what it is too. You watch a movie like Bohemian Rhapsody, and then you watch Walk the Line, and you're like, Johnny Cash wasn't that crazy. Freddie Mercury did so much more fucked up shit. And you watch any other rock star from like the 70s or 80s, those guys all took it to another level. Fucking Elvis took it to another level, and he was a side character in the movie.
Well, I mean, it depends on like the story that they were focusing on in this, because you're trying to encapsulate someone's whole life into 2 hours and 15 minutes of a film, and they were also I think they did a really great job of fleshing both of these main characters out, of making sure that they both had a well-rounded arc, even though clearly Johnny Cash was the main character, and June she's right up there with him, but the story was Johnny Cash's story. They didn't want to focus on all the crazy stuff. They just did like montages of the crazy stuff of him, sleeping with women and starting to take drugs and all this stuff. I'm sure they could have probably done a whole movie in and of itself of all the crazy shit that Johnny Cash did while on tour with these young kids, when he's away from his wife and family to blow off some steam, and you're surrounded by all this craziness and this hype. I'm sure there's a lot more to it. They just
tying bombs to trees.
That
Things out of the wall.
Yeah.
Just normal rock star shit.
Exactly.
Apparently that was improvised. Joaquin Phoenix was not supposed to rip his entire room apart, but he just did it. Because that's what Joaquin Phoenix does. Joaquin Phoenix does what Joaquin Phoenix does.
And you film it and you go with it.
Put that in the movie. Apparently him and Reese Witherspoon did not get along at the very beginning. When they were filming, they were button heads and they were very pissed off at each other. But then they changed that and got around to liking each other. I'm not surprised by this at all. Joaquin Phoenix is a very weird method actor. So he probably was acting really strange towards Reese Witherspoon, who comes off, I don't know her, so I can't really say, but she comes off as a person who's really genuine and sweet. So I would imagine that she would have met Joaquin Phoenix and been like, whatever. Like he probably wrote her off, and that's why they probably butted heads at first. But then obviously the whole film, as he's trying to like get on her good side, they probably actually started to get along in real life as well. And apparently at one point, because apparently the movie production didn't go as well as you would hope, there were issues. They made a pact with one another and said, if you quit the movie, I'm quitting the movie. So big turnaround in terms of their relationship on camera and off camera.
Wow.
Interestingly enough. This is, of course, according to the very reliable sources at Wikipedia. So
it is really difficult actually to get verified information on Wikipedia. It's difficult to get that. You can't just, which is why I'm really angry at all of my high school teachers for saying don't cite Wikipedia. It's actually really difficult to get information on Wikipedia, especially if it's incorrect. It immediately gets taken off. So
yeah, I mean, there's always people fact checking stuff, but I'm pretty sure the reason they say don't fact check through Wikipedia is because I can go on there and change Abraham Lincoln's birthday to being like 2005, and he was born in 2005, and no one might notice for a little bit.
for a while.
At a time. I think that's where Donald Trump is getting all of his alternative facts for coronavirus. He's just going on there and being like, no, this is it. We have the best rate of cases. There's no cases. Florida doesn't exist.
He was
Pretend.
down there all the time, and that's where he legally moved to. It's weird watching films now in this pandemic.
I thought that was the end of the sentence. It's weird watching films now.
I mean,
Weird now.
I could end it there, but watching films now in this pandemic and like seeing, large crowds of extras and, the actors getting like this close to each other and, talk like, especially when they're singing like in each other's faces at the same microphone. I can't help but be like, no, 6 feet apart, no.
You're supposed to socially distance back in 1950 something. Polio exists. They should be socially distancing for polio.
I'm itching for getting back to a sense of normalcy, and it's not anywhere close.
Never gonna be. No more normal. Normal's for wimps. We're not wimps. We're gonna be living a crazy lifestyle from now on. I want you to play the video game Death Stranding.
That's true.
It's basically about how the outside world has become so hazardous that everybody that is just trying to live their life lives in an underground bunker. and you play the game as basically you're Norman Reedus. You look exactly like Norman Reedus. It's played by Norman Reedus, and you're basically a person who just delivers packages. And you go around, and you're the guy bringing stuff from one bunker to another bunker. That's it. That's the game, and that's what life should be. There's just a bunch of Amazon delivery people out there in the real hazardous world with coronavirus and stuff, and they're bringing us stuff that we order off of Amazon.
I mean, that is what's going on right now. So
I think I'm bullshitting about this. This is real life.
this is real life.
Yeah. They are talking about getting back into production. A bunch of movies actually restarted production. The Matrix is back in full swing. I know this because I saw a video online of them filming The Matrix 4, and Keanu Reeves was on a motorcycle with Trinity. Spoiler alert, they're both not dead.
Dun, dun, dun.
Dun, dun, dun. But it was a really cool rig, too. It was like a motorcycle, and Trinity was riding the motorcycle, and Keanu Reeves was on the back of it holding on. But it was almost built, like the motorcycle was almost built into like a float. Like there was a whole platform next to it that was driving itself, and people were standing on it, and they were all filming in different areas. And it was really cool to see a cool big camera rig. I know, too, they just started production on Uncharted the movie, starring Tom and Mark Wahlberg.
Yeah, I've been seeing a lot on Tom Holland's Facebook or Instagram of him sharing
You're
stuff
looking
like
at Flex. He's
I
flexing.
don't know how I feel about it.
I can't, personality-wise, anybody can make themselves muscular and look like that. And for Spider-Man, obviously, he's got to be a little bit thinner and more agile or whatever. That character is not a small person. Like, I imagine him being, like, I would almost imagine Chris Evans being that character.
Well, so I think what they're doing is they're changing. I could be wrong about all of this, but I think originally Mark Wahlberg was trying to get the rights to make this film a long time ago when he was the right age to play Nathan Drake. However, it took so long. He's still attached to the project. He's not quite old enough to play Sully and the age that Sully is in the video games. So they're kind of they're writing a whole new chapter of it that you don't see in the video games. In the video games, you can see the very beginnings of their relationship and where they are today. But there's this weird, like, in-between of a younger Nathan and a younger Sully and see where they're at. So I think they're telling, like, kind of a whole new...
Like a prequel?
Kind of. I mean, in the third game, you see the first time Nathan meets Sully and how their relationship started. But it's only like a couple scenes where you see this very beginning when Nathan is like 14. So I think they're probably, and then in the games, Nathan's got to be in his like early to mid 30s through the series of the games. So I think that they're probably doing this new like younger Nathan who's just turned 21 or something like that.
All these adaptations.
I don't know.
Act, survive, overcome. What is it?
What, endure and survive?
Endure. That's what it is. Yeah.
Yep. We'll see.
They're going to make movies off of everything. They're making a movie for every video game that's ever existed. They're going to make it. HBO's making The Last of Us into a thing. Yep. They made Assassin's Creed into a really bad movie. You know, I'm waiting on Gears of War. Gears of War is a movie that I think could happen. But they need to bring every WWE wrestler that doesn't wrestle anymore out of retirement and have them play, because there's no one else that can play those huge characters. They're ridiculous. Their proportions of who they are insane.
So here's what you need to do. You need to call Sultan, who works as a writer for the WWE, get him to talk to Vince McMahon and have him contact the video game people, and there you go.
I jumped the gun and I went a step further, and I already DM'd Dave Bautista because he's been trying to get that role forever, because he kind of looks like the main character, Marcus Phoenix, and I think the studio is just shying away from it, and I'm assuming they told him no, but they were like, we really think this could have worked, but it's just not what we're going for if they are going to make that movie. So instead they made a skin for Gears of War 5, like one of the multiplayer skins is just Dave Bautista in red sunglasses.
Oh.
So it's weird, but it's also awesome at the same time. But it's also like, if they did that, they're not going to make a whole movie with that guy. But when he was trying to get the role and it was blowing up on Twitter and everyone was like, they should do this, I DM'd him and I was like, please do this. Make it happen. Help me out. I will come on board. I'll do whatever you need me to do. Gears of War, it would be a fun project to work on, but I think it would be problematic because it's a type of franchise that does not give a fuck at any point. It's just loud, in-your-face ridiculousness, and there's nothing PC about it in any way. Nothing necessarily like misogynistic or racist or anything, but it's all the men that save the world. Men save the world, and the women are just like, help us. They're just all dying in the background. It's really sad.
Sounds great. On that note.
No, we can't do on that note. On that note, me, every time I say, it's not even me, it's Gears of War.
Okay. All right. Well, anyway.
Say something else. We have to say something of substance. All right?
Walk the Line was great.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning into the AFC Podcast. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening.
Mm-hmm. I think I broke Jim.
I don't know how to continue. I need something of substance to say, but we're out. We finish. We're
done. We've got.
I always end on something that I say that's not even bad, but kind of bad.
Because, Jim. Because we have to.
I think we should just talk until you say something bad. It might be a while.
It would be like a 6-hour podcast, Jim.
True. I think you know what we should do? This is what we should do to enhance the podcast. And we're taking suggestions here, ladies and gentlemen. We can start drinking on the podcast. Like here's some whiskey, and like as we do the podcast. So by the end of it, we're just belligerently saying whatever we think.
I mean, I'm up for that. Send messages in.
Suggest some liquors to us, and we'll be drunk talking about movies. I'm sure that's a podcast already. There has to be a podcast out there that's let's drink and talk about movies.
I'm sure.
Got to be a thing.
But it doesn't mean that we can't do it.
We can do it. Is it appropriation if we do that and we don't know the podcast?
I think if it's just a one-time episode, a themed episode, if you will, I think it's okay.
Oh, so you're okay with appropriation, huh? And on that note, got her. You've been canceled, Victoria. You've been canceled. You and your Ghostbusters.
Leave the Ghostbusters out of this.
Listen, there's a whole sign that says no to the Ghostbusters.
Well, folks, thank you for tuning in to the AFC Podcast. As a reminder, you can watch us on YouTube. You can also listen to our dulcet tones on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and on Castbox. It's on you now, Jim.
This was great. I had so much fun today. Thank you, Victoria. I'm Jim Galizia. Thank you guys for tuning in, listening to us ramble on about whatever the hell we're talking about at this point.
And thank you to Toni Vitale for coming on and giving us that walk the line to talk about and talking to us about your career and everything that she's doing. We'll give you all the links and everything so you can keep up with her and all of her projects.
Cool. Thank you, guys. See you next time.